Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome, folks. This is the More Money Show. I'm economist Steve Moore. Thank you so much for joining. We have affiliates throughout these United States of America. We reach every state from coast to coast. We have people listening in San Francisco, in Los Angeles, in Chicago, St. Louis. We have Kansas City. We have Cincinnati. We have Buffalo, New York. We have Maine. We have all the way down to Atlanta, Georgia. I think we may have some Florida stations as well. Thank you so much for joining. It is one of my high privileges and the highlight of my week to be able to be in front of this microphone talking to you about how to make more money. And we talk about business. We talk about finance. We talk about politics. All three of those things are important. By the way, you may have seen me on Fox News in the last few weeks. I've been on a lot of these shows talking about this economy, which is really a remarkable, talk about an incredible resurrection. When you look at where the economy is today versus where it was in the Biden years, it is an amazing, amazing metamorphosis. And I'm very optimistic about 2026. I think we can have 4 to 5% economic growth, but I would take anything over 3%. And when the economy is growing by more than 3%, you start to lower the burden of the debt. And I know most of my listeners are very concerned about the debt. I know that because I talk to you every week. And I'm concerned about it too. But one of the best ways to bring our debt and deficit down, and our debt is nearing $40 trillion, is to make sure we have people working, we have businesses flourishing, we have more tax revenues. You get a lot more tax revenues when people are working than when they're on welfare. So super optimistic about things to come. We're going to see Dow 50,000 very soon, in my opinion. And we are knocking on the door of that right now. So really exciting stuff to come. I always tell people stocks for the long run. That's my only investment advice. If you're a young person listening to the show under 40, put your money into an index fund, put your money in the stock market, let it grow. It was Albert Einstein who said that the most powerful force in the universe is compound interest. So make money by investing in Trump's America, because you will make money. This is a guy who I don't always agree with, but I mostly agree with because he's pro-business, he's pro-free markets, and we're seeing the results of that. Incidentally, Trump was sort of in the toilet in terms of his approval ratings in September, October, November, and December of last year. But now his approval rating is rising, not just because of the incredible triumph that we saw with our incredible military in Venezuela in getting rid of Maduro, who is one of the great villains of the last 25 years. This is a man who starved to death his own citizens, enriched himself, and put, the poverty rate in Venezuela in the last days of Maduro's criminal regime, that poverty rate hit 80%. 4 out of 5 Venezuelans were living in poverty. Gee, what a great man that was. And of course, the severe poverty rate was near 50%. And severe poverty means you don't even have enough money to feed yourself. And so I find the reaction to what happened in Venezuela pitiful, actually, among some of my Democratic friends. And you've got some cities where Americans, young people, are marching in the street protesting Trump for liberating 30 million people. This would be like protesting D-Day. Now, I'm not going to put this on that same level, but what Trump did was moved in and ridded a country of an illegal dictator who is a narco dictator who is bringing poison drugs into our country and killing our young people. And yet, for some reason, you have Democrats who, maybe it's because it's just Trump derangement syndrome. They hate him so much they can't favor things that he does, even when they're unquestionably solid moves. And so I have this cartoon in our in our hotline. I hope everybody gets the hotline, by the way. Just go to unleashprosperity.com and you can get it 5 mornings a week for free. It's an email that comes in and you'd really enjoy it, I believe. And so every hotline has either a cartoon or some kind of a funny meme at the end of it. And the one we had the other day, it's Trump in a kind of magician outfit with a little wand. And he says, and for my next trick, I will get Democrats to defend a communist drug lord. And of course, that's exactly what they are doing. So when you put together peace and prosperity, you can't beat that. And by the way, we had peace and prosperity under Reagan. We had peace and prosperity under a Democratic president, Bill Clinton, and we have peace and prosperity now. I do favor us getting out of Venezuela as quickly as possible. I'm not into nation building, and I don't think America should be into nation building. We've liberated that country. We should get out as expeditiously as possible. I like the idea of letting the Venezuelans own the oil. Give it to the people, not the politicians, because the politicians are the only people who got rich in Venezuela over the last 20 years. Give it to the people who you put in poverty. And then you're looking at really good numbers for Trump on the economy. We've got the big, beautiful bill really kicking in this week. So people are going to start to see the bigger paychecks. You're going to see this, folks, very soon. We estimate you're going to save about $1,500 to $2,000 a year from the Trump big, beautiful bill. It's not for rich people. It's all of us. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime. All that stuff kicks in. What's not to like, folks? If you think I'm in a good mood, if I sound like I'm in a good mood, I am, because this is an incredible role this country is on. God bless America. And we will be right back. This is The More Money Show.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We're back, folks. This is The More Money Show. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend. My next guest is one of the top economists in the world, not just in the United States. And that, of course, is Arthur B. Laffer, who is famous for many, many things. He served honorably for Ronald Reagan. He served for Donald Trump, and is an expert on how to grow economies. And so, Arthur, thanks so much for coming on. My first question for you is, you and I think, agree that 2026 is going to be a blockbuster year for the economy. It seems like just everything is going well, but what's your take?
I think so, yeah. I think all the current information, all the current data are very much on our side, although I wouldn't base my forecast on them. But the inflation rate's coming down pretty sharply. Yes. The GDP growth is up. And if you think about the immigration issue, employment's doing really, really well. So there's nothing out there. The stock market's nice. All of the stuff is good. But I think because of policies, the tax policies of the BBB coming into effect now, and with new Fed chairman's coming in, Steve, we've got some controls from the BBB on government spending. We've got some great stuff in deregulation, especially energy and healthcare. And then, of course, Trump's use of tariffs has been exceptionally adroit in getting great deals with.
Wait a minute! I thought you were a free market, free trade guy.
I am a free trade guy, but I'm not against negotiations with using trade. And every deal he's ultimately done has been much freer trade than it was before. And he just uses the tools to negotiate great deals, including peace, which I love peace. Peace through strength is my
peace
favorite.
And prosperity. It's not that complicated. I couldn't agree more. I think some of these trade deals, and I'm with you. I believe in free trade, and the freedom to trade is critical, or else we'd all be living in caves. But he really has gone to China and Japan and Korea and Canada and Europe and said, "Hey, lower your tariffs. We need freer trade," and I think we're going to get that.
I think that's true, Steve. I think you're completely right. And I'm quite optimistic. Now, I don't know what that means in terms of GDP growth, but we've had some pretty good growth numbers, and the fourth quarter is projected to be pretty good too. So I'm pretty optimistic.
Yeah. Now, there is a big issue that I wanted to ask you about, which is housing prices. You have a bunch of kids, and you have a bunch of. How many grandkids do you have? I can't even keep count.
I have 14 grandkids so far. I'm going to have a couple more, and I've got 4 great grandkids.
Oh my God! So
and 6 kids,
those grandchildren
kids,
of yours. Those grandchildren of yours are getting to the age where they may be looking to buy a house, and yet housing is expensive. I have 2 kids both in their early 30s, about the time people would normally start looking at buying a house. They can't afford it. So what do you think? What's the solution?
You can't afford not to have a house. I mean, if you want to live in low-cost housing areas like West Virginia and southern Kentucky and central Detroit, no. High housing prices is a sign of prosperity and good jobs and high incomes.
I agree with that.
What you need to do is bite the bullet and buy a house when you're young and take the risk. And, half the capital stock in America is in housing.
Yes.
And if you have housing prices fall, you're going to have a collapse of all-time records. I mean, we need affordability now is a different story. The more houses that are built, the more affordable they become. So, but you don't want housing prices falling. You really don't.
No, if you think falling housing prices are a good thing, go to Detroit where you can get a house for $5,000.
That's exactly right, or West Virginia or Kentucky.
Yeah. So I'm going to take issue with one thing that Trump did this last week that I think is wrong-headed, and I agree with 90% of what Trump does, but he is going to make it illegal for this just came across the transom, that he wants to make it illegal for institutional investors to buy homes. What do you think of that?
I have no idea. I didn't hear about that, so I don't know about it. I haven't looked at it, Steve. Let me look at it. I don't know what he's talking about. I mean, what's an institutional investor? I can't own a second home. I can't imagine he's doing that. Or a lot of the rental properties are huge. I mean, huge, providing homes for people who otherwise couldn't afford them. I mean, so I'd have to look at it carefully, Steve, but I don't want to weigh in until I do.
So on the tax issue, you had so much to do with crafting the original Trump tax bill with Larry Kudlow and myself.
You and I and Larry did
amazing.
It, guys.
And isn't it cool that from the time, at least I first met him back in early 2016 to today, that is the law of the land, is the lower tax rates. So tell us about why, okay. So let's say I'm not very well educated in economics, and all I hear in the media is, that was just a big tax cut for the rich. What do you say?
Well, it's not. I mean, it does. There's nothing wrong with tax cuts for the rich. But what we know, Steve, from history, and I have every single tax return from 1913 to the present, every time we've cut tax rates on the top 1% of income earners, 3 things have happened.
Right.
The economy has outperformed. Tax revenues from the rich have gone up, and the poor have found every time we've cut taxes, the economy has outperformed. Revenues have gone up from the rich, and the poor have found jobs. Raising taxes on the rich is a guaranteed way of hurting the poor, getting less revenue, and destroying the economy.
Now, that seems very counterintuitive.
Why?
Well, because people
Why
say
would it be counterintuitive to tell people that rich people work to make income, they employ other people. If you cut tax rates on them, they'll invest more, they'll produce more, and the economy will outperform. And when you raise taxes on the rich, they just hire lawyers, accountants, deferred income specialists, favor grabbers, and lobbyists. And they don't pay the taxes. And that's not what you want.
Well, there's a good example in our audience here in New York City. New York is losing people. Our Vote With Your Feet website shows 3 million people on net have left New York State, most of whom have left New York City. So people are mobile. They do move to escape high taxes.
They sure do. And I did. I moved from Southern California to here, to Tennessee, purely and simply because of taxes. No other reason. I love Southern California, but I moved here purely and simply to avoid the taxes in California. And I'm really glad I did.
Even though you gave up the beautiful sunny skies and beautiful home in the mountains?
No, I get to go back all the time, Steve, right. And I don't have to pay the taxes.
So, Arthur,
I can go back there and spend 6 months there and play around and do all that and still not have to pay the tax.
So, we have a new mayor who talks about the collective warmth, the warm embrace of collectivism, and he doesn't seem to understand a lot of the stuff that you talk about that seems pretty commonsensible to me. If you had some time to sit down with the new mayor of New York City, what would you tell him?
Well, I would love to. And I'd like to do it in private so that there's no press, there's no way of making a show. I don't want any virtue signaling and anything. I just go through the numbers with him and just ask him, I mean, what do you like? I mean, we know that the 9 states with no earned income tax, they've outperformed all the other states by massive amounts.
Right.
We know that the 11 states that have introduced an income tax since 1960 have just collapsed before our very eyes. We know all of the comparisons, like Kentucky and Tennessee and New Hampshire and Vermont and Florida and New York, California, Texas. All of these examples have shown the absolute power of making your state competitive. And what is it that he doesn't like about those results? And, I'd be interested to hear what he says.
Yeah,
I don't want to confront him and yell at him.
Of course,
doesn't solve anything.
Yeah, he needs to be educated. I don't know if he's even heard about these issues.
Let's hear what he says.
Yeah, and so you may have read in our hotline this week that the mayor of Dallas, who's a African American Republican, has said, "Hey, you don't want to pay those high taxes in New York City. We've got Wall Street South, and you can move here." And 100,000 financial jobs have moved to Dallas.
Yes, they have.
And what is that income tax in Dallas again?
I think it's 0.
Right. So there's a big difference between 13% and 0.
Yeah, and it's even much more than that. It's the regulations, it's restrictions, it's requirements, it's spending welfare. It's just the whole kit and caboodle. I mean, what we talk about when we talk about tax rates, Steve, is really those are emblematic of the mental set of the government to try to really screw producers and income earners as much as they possibly can. And it's just very sad because no one is made better off when someone else is made worse off.
So there's a great bestseller out there, Arthur Laffer. I don't know if you've read it yet. It's called The Trump Economic Miracle.
I've never heard of it.
For those who don't get this inside joke, Arthur Laffer and I are the authors of that book. And
yes,
we've probably written about 4 books together, but that one is, and we called it, by the way. We said he would produce a prosperity, and so far, so good.
It's been perfect. And we also do the one, which I don't know if your audience knows, but Rich States, Poor States. We've done that for years and years.
Right. Thank you, Arthur. That's the great Arthur B. Laffer. His latest book is Taxes Have Consequences, and he's also the co-author of a book with yours truly called The Trump Economic Miracle, and we'll be right back. This is The More Money Show.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend. A lot to continue our conversation on. I'm joined now with John Fund, who was many, many years the political voice of the Wall Street Journal and has been with National Review for many years, works with me at Unleash Prosperity. John, thanks for joining.
Pleasure, Steve. Good to hear from you.
And we also have Peter Roth, who is with Newsweek, works at Unleash Prosperity, and has been a political pro for, I don't know, how long have you been in Washington now?
Longer than either of us would care to say, Steve.
So I can't think of any group that would be better to talk about the politics of what's going on in Washington right now. And let us start with this, that at the end of the year, Trump's approval rating on the economy was quite poor, especially given how strong the economy was. The good news is that the latest polls that have come out just in the last few days show Trump climbing again. And I regard that as a kind of, you got a perception and a reality, and the economy is strong and has been strong. And I believe, Peter, that what's happening now is people's perceptions are starting to catch up with that reality. But give me a sense of where you think Trump is right now.
I think that's right. Trump owns the economy, and that's slightly unfair because the principal problem, as I just wrote in Newsweek, is this so-called affordability crisis, which is really just the hangover from the Biden spending like drunken sailors binge. The higher prices are here to stay. We have to wait for wages to catch up. Under Trump, as it was in the first term, wages are growing. Under Biden, wages declined, and so the inequality gap got wider. Trump is explaining that to the American people, but he is he's facing a headwind coming from all the Democrats who want to argue that the economy is in a shambles to set themselves up for a big win in November of this year.
I think that's a good analysis. And John Fund, one of the interesting aspects of what's going on Capitol Hill right now is this big debate that we've been debating for years, about what to do with Obamacare. And people are angry about the cost of health insurance, as they should be. As you know, I'm a huge advocate of getting rid of Obamacare. I think it was false and misleading advertising to even call it the Affordable Care Act. But what is your assessment of? But Republicans don't like to talk about health care. They're afraid of the issue, even though the Democratic plans have moved us more and more closer to essentially a national health program, socialized medicine like they have in Europe.
Well, Steve, I think that what we have is a complete contrast from, let's say, the energy issue. Mm-hmm. On the energy issue, Republicans have found their mojo.
Yes.
They can talk about energy. They can explain why prices are coming down, and gasoline prices certainly have. They can talk about build, drill, baby, bit drill. They can talk about, all of the above energy exploration.
Gas prices.
Exactly. So those are market forces, and they can explain that. Healthcare. And I think there are a variety of psychological reasons for this. They're scared of, and I think largely it's because every time they've fought the battle, ever since Hillary Care went down, for the last 20 years, they didn't have their own comprehensive approach to solving America's healthcare problems. And whenever they did attack the Democrats, the media attacked them, and they came out the losers. I think the playing field has changed. Mm-hmm. I think there are enough media outlets that will give Republicans time and space to make their case. And I think the Republican case for free markets, for health savings accounts, for letting people control their own health care, and especially Donald Trump's rhetoric on how the insurance companies are the big winners of Obamacare.
Yeah, and as you know, he got that rhetoric from us. We were the ones who started saying, hey, the villain here is the insurance companies are gobbling up all the money.
If it's the insurance companies and the hospitals, absolutely.
So, Peter, the other big story this week politically is your good friend Tim Walz in Minnesota, and I'm saying that jokingly. But he is
never met the man, and there are no photographs to prove otherwise.
So it's hard to believe that this man could have been one heartbeat away from the Oval Office when he was running for vice president. But this is, to me, Peter, a mega scandal. A mega scandal that has cost taxpayers billions of dollars. And the media, to a large extent, has just shrugged their shoulder. I mean, why is he even continuing? He has basically said he's not going to run for re-election. I think he should maybe even be arrested. I mean, what did he know and when did he know it?
That's the big question. And it isn't being investigated to my satisfaction. And I suspect that Walz is not the only governor of a large blue state.
What was going on here?
Oh, they were taking federal payments.
Right.
That were supposed to be used to subsidize, in this case, daycare and childcare, pocketing the money and sending it back to Somalia to fund the warlords and to fund the political machine in Minnesota that keeps Keith Ellison and Ilhan Omar in office. Yeah. I suspect if they look closely at places like Chicago and St. Louis and New York, they'd find similar circumstances, but they don't want to look.
Well, actually, there are 5 states now where Donald Trump has ended or frozen federal funding for all of these programs because he feels there's systemic fraud, as Peter points out. California, Illinois, New York.
All blue states.
Colorado, and others that are going to be joining that list. And we're going to see lots more Minnesota stories, perhaps slightly less outrageous, but we're going to see them piling out between now and congressional hearings in March.
And I think John is exactly right. And the challenge to people like John and I who are in the media space is to convince people that corruption in government is as endemic and is as big a story as the left pretends that corruption in business is.
Bigger.
And in fact, in fact, it is bigger. Yeah. And you cannot manage a welfare state without a corruption rider. People get paid off. It is how the system works.
That's Peter Roth. He is one of the political writers at the Newsweek. So John Fund, now with National Review, why the left has kind of ho-hummed this whole story. You would think that, they say they want good government, and yet this is billions and billions of dollars have been ripped off from taxpayers. We don't know to what extent they were in on this, but it's hard to believe that Tim Walz and other elected officials had no idea what was going on.
Well, briefly, and Peter's pointed this out, the liberal media was complicit in this story because in 2019, the Democrats took control of both houses of the Minnesota legislature, and with Governor Walz, they expanded the welfare state dramatically just before COVID hit. They created conditions for this to happen. And what was the left's response? Oh, the progressive government has brought all of these great government programs to life.
They called it the Minnesota Miracle.
The Minnesota Miracle. And you know what? The Minnesota Miracle has become the Minnesota Turd. And they don't want to acknowledge their complicity.
So I agree with you both that I think this is going on all over the country, maybe even in some red states too. And here's my problem, Peter. The incentives of these programs is the federal government pays the bills, they send the money to the states. So if in effect, and I've talked to Democrat and Republican lawmakers say, well, the fraud just brings more money into our state. So they don't, in other words, there's no incentive for these governors or these mayors or city council members to root out the fraud because it's other people's money.
Well, it's other people's money, but it's also being used, at least we suspect it's being used to fund the political machines that are keeping them in power.
Now, is there any evidence of that?
There is some evidence, I understand.
Well, the Somali community in Minneapolis has had notorious problems with voter fraud because it's a concentrated group that follows Klan leadership. And if the clans are rented or leased to vote for certain people, you're going to get a block vote. And that has helped keep Minnesota democratic and for the last decade.
And here's where we are,
to Jason Lewis, who, as you know, was a congressman from Minnesota, and he says he lost his race. He thinks, there's evidence that voter fraud was really what made the difference in that race, and it could have been all this money that was funding these political elections.
I think that's probably, there's a lot of legitimacy there. But, Steve, you like to talk about the difference between the blue states and the red states. And I'd posit that that's not the divide anymore. It's the red states versus the blue cities.
Yes.
Because there are certain cities that, like Minneapolis, St. Paul, which dominate Minnesota. But that's the last redoubt of the Democrat progressive left machine. And so they can take over New York with a Mondami. They can take over Seattle with a progressive mayor that's never had a real job in her life and lived in her parents' basement. But because they're population centric, that's what we're fighting. And that's why the analysis that you provide through Unleash Prosperity at the votewithyourfeet.com website that show that sensible people are moving from blue states, blue cities to red states where they can enjoy prosperity is so important.
We'll be right back, folks. This is the More Money Show. I'm talking to John Fund of National Review and Peter Roth from Newsweek. And next I want to talk about the first couple of weeks of Mondami, the new mayor of New York City, who is talking a lot about the wonders of collectivism. We'll be right back.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
New Year, same extra value meals at McDonald's. So now get 2 snack wraps, plus fries, and a medium soft drink for just $8.
For limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Hawaii, Alaska, and California, and for delivery.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show. I'm economist Steve Moore. I have two of the smartest political minds in the country with me this afternoon. John Fund from National Review, and you know him from the Wall Street Journal. You know him from Fox News. And Peter Roth, who's one of the political writers at Newsweek. I wanted to talk about what's going on in New York. Mondami is now the mayor of the city. This is a city that has been losing population, as you talked about, Peter. If you go to Vote with Your Feet, you're right. In the last 20 years, New York has lost well over 3 million, closer to 4 million people on net, and many of them from New York City. What do you think explains how a city of very smart people could elect someone who talks about the wonders of collectivism and socialism? What's going wrong?
Well,
here?
When Ed Koch lost the primary to David Dinkins, he said the voters have spoken and they must be punished. And that's kind of my attitude towards towards what's going on right now.
By the way, they just who was the mayor before?
Eric Adams.
What's that?
Eric Adams.
No, but before him, it was
Michael Bloomberg.
Bill de Blasio.
Oh, Bill de Blasio.
And you would have thought, John Fund, that the New Yorkers might have learned a lesson from his catastrophic time in office, but
it wasn't as catastrophic as you might think, because Bill de Blasio was the laziest progressive mayor I've ever seen. He talked a good game, but he actually didn't do that much.
So that's how they survived him. But will they survive? Let's just get right down to it. Can New York City survive the Mandami agenda?
Let me supplement what Peter said. If you look at the exit polls and you break the electorate down into three groups who voted in November, and Mandami only won with 50% of the vote.
Yes.
If you were born in New York City, which is about half the people, you voted overwhelmingly against Mandami.
Mm.
If you were in New York less than 10 years, about break even, you were in New York less than 5 years, 70% Mandami.
So what does that tell you?
It tells me that people who don't understand New York and don't remember the horrible days of John Lindsay and David Dinkins and even Bill de Blasio have no collective memory. They're youngsters.
They're young people,
or they're South Asians, including many South Asian Muslims. So there's ethnic solidarity and religious solidarity there. They went big for Mandami, and they were attracted to his glib statements like free buses for all, no a freeze on rent, all of these things.
Government grocery stores.
Which sound good, but of course are completely impractical.
And all of which are probably going to go in the memory hole as fast as the New York Times can get them there. If it hadn't been for the Republicans, you wouldn't remember Barack Obama promised that if you liked your doctor, you could keep it when he was pitching the Affordable Care Act. Trump, who promised Mexico would pay for the wall as a throwaway joke line, got hung around his neck like a medal. And this is what's going to happen with Mandami. All of these promises are out the window. They just raised the subway fare to $3. Now, he's promising free trains, and granted, it's not his fault that they raised the subway fare to $3, but he's not on record denouncing it, deposing it, or marching on the MTA office, demanding that they reverse their reduction, because he understands that he can't run afoul of the Transit Workers Union.
So, John Fund of National Review, we had an article in our hotline this week about how the Dallas mayor is basically saying, hey, New Yorkers, you want to come to a city that works, come to Dallas. And he's saying that especially to people from Wall Street, the people who make Wall Street possible. Are we going to see a Wall Street South?
Well, we already are in a sense. 100,000 finance jobs have moved to Dallas already. 100,000. Not all of them from New York, but I mean, that shows that the sector is growing there.
Right.
In Dallas, they call their new downtown financial sector Y'all Street. And it is booming.
Right.
And I believe that, the New York Stock Exchange is opening a satellite office in Dallas.
Yes.
Goldman Sachs has transferred a lot of people to Dallas. Yes. The Big D is on the big upswing. And the mayor, Eric Johnson, who's a Republican, an African-American Republican, says this is going to be one of the easiest sales jobs I've ever had. He said, there may come a day when people will say, do you remember when New York City was the financial center of the country? How weird it is that was the case.
So, Peter, I mean, here is a conundrum, paradox. I mean, New York City, and by the way, New York City is arguably the most important city in the world, is the financial capital of the world. And yet the city that's supposed to be the financial capital of the world has the highest taxes on capital. I mean, it would be like, Nebraska having the highest taxes on corn. Or
it is shocking. So, you're right. It is shocking.
What's going on
it is shocking to me how much the progressives do to chase out the golden goose.
Right. So, John Fund, I'm sure you remember the famous headline, Ford to New York City dropped dead.
Which he never said.
He never said it?
Never said it.
Okay. But in any case, I have a prediction that New York City in a few years is going to come to Washington saying we need a bailout because our policies are causing them, as Peter just said, when rich people leave, they take their tax dollars with them.
Steve, they already have a structural deficit that's so large they need a bailout.
Oh my God.
New York, it may not be bankrupt, but it's completely insolvent.
Peter?
Yeah, there's no glide path to a soft landing here for Mondami if he moves forward. And the particular problem he is, because as it exists in most states, the mayor of New York is not empowered to do things on his own. He's got to get the consent of the city council. He's got to get the consent of the state legislature, and often the consent of the governor to do a lot of the things he wants to do, which makes the upcoming governor's race in New York, which looks like it's going to be Kathy Hochul, who learned everything she did at the knee of Andrew Cuomo, versus Brad Blakeman, the Nassau County executive, a very competitive race.
John, is that a winnable race for the Republicans, you think?
Mamdani may make it winnable because he is going to be the focal point of a lot of bad news and a lot of anger because people realize that the promises Peter mentioned aren't going to come to pass.
Well, New York has had Republican governors. You had Pataki, who did a good job, and so on. So it wouldn't be unprecedented, Peter, for the voters to change directions. But this is a pretty deeply blue state. And who was the Republican who ran for governor recently and he's in the cabinet now?
Lee Zeldin.
Yeah. He told me, look, if the Republicans hadn't all left New York State, he said he would have won the election. But
I think that's probably right. And the question is, are there enough Republicans and independents left in New York, and now non-socialist Democrats, to put a Republican in the governor's mansion in Albany? And I think we're going to know, I think Mondami is going to experience sooner rather than later the Thatcherism that the only thing wrong with socialism, it's sooner or later you run out of other people's money.
We only have a couple of minutes left.
Mondami will run out of it faster.
In the last couple of minutes, each throw a question to you. Do you believe that Mondami could move to the middle in a way that would be more politically strategic and better for the people of New York? Is he capable of that?
Not in the first year before the governor's race is resolved. Look, he had a choice when he made his inaugural speech as mayor. And he could have said, I want to embrace communitarianism. I want to embrace solidarity. I want to have all of. No, he said, I want to replace rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism. Excuse me? Collectivism is a communist term. He calls himself a democratic socialist. But if you look at the crazy people he's appointing, including this housing official who says that we have to destroy the white middle class, used that word, and is against private property. Imagine a housing person against private property. I think he is going to go over the cliff before he rethinks anything.
What's your prediction?
I think his strategy is to fail and fail again until he's in the White House. He's going to fail as mayor, kicking and screaming, blaming the establishment for stopping him, and he's going to fail that into the governor's mansion or a Senate seat, and from there he's going to try and fail into the White House where he can actually achieve change.
In our last 1 minute, John Fund, one of the Democrats who is probably has the loudest voice in the party, or one of the loudest voices, is your good friend AOC. Is she going to run for president, and could she win the Democratic nomination?
Well, Chuck Schumer is almost certainly not going to run for re-election in 2028.
Oh, wow.
And so there's a vacant Senate seat. She'll be only 35, which is the minimum age to be president.
I didn't realize she was that young. Man.
Yes, she is. Wow. And
she could then run for president.
But I think she's going to bide her time.
Okay.
I mean, at 35, you don't want to shoot your wad too early. So I think she'll be elected senator from New York, and I think that it'll be competitive if Mondami is a failure. It'll be competitive because they'll say, your ideas were tried out and found to be failures.
Thank you, John Fund. Thank you, Peter Roth. This is the More Money Show, and we will be right back.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just
speaking into the void?
But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome, folks. This is the More Money Show. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend. This is our second hour of the show, and we're so fortunate to follow the great Larry Kudlow, who, of course, is on many of these same affiliates for 3 hours before I come on. So it is a real privilege to follow my good friend Larry Kudlow, who, by the way, was the best man at my wedding. So he and I are great buddies, and I'm so proud of his TV show, which is on Fox Business News. And as you probably know, he's the top-rated business show on all of cable TV, which is amazing. So I'm always proud to go on that show, his radio and TV show. So I want to talk to you in these opening minutes about what happened in Venezuela in terms of the economy, because a lot of people are not really following what happened in Venezuela when Maduro was president and how horrible it was there. And so let's start with this. Here is the quick story of Venezuela. First, you had Maduro come in, and the first thing he did was destroy the country. So if you look at what happened when Maduro was president, was that he took the poverty rate up to virtually the highest poverty rate in the world. You had a country that had been rich in the late 20th century and then became extremely poor. And so you had poverty rates that hit as high as 75 to 80%. You had extreme poverty rates that hit as high as 50%, meaning people could barely feed themselves. And remember, the thing that's amazing about this story is that this was a country that has $1 trillion worth of oil. It has as much oil as Saudi Arabia, for goodness sake. How do you throw people into poverty in a country that has those kinds of resources? By the way, they have hundreds of billions of dollars of mineral resources as well. And the answer is because communists and socialists, democratic socialists, whatever you want to call them, are incompetent. And so they shut down 2/3 of their oil fields, and that led to a crash in the economy. So let me give you some of these really sad results. This is a terrible, terrible story, and I call it Cry for Venezuela. Yes, cry for Venezuela because of what Mandami did. So let's start with the fact. I mentioned the poverty rate. The poverty rate went to the highest rate in the world. And next you have what happened with the people's incomes, and their incomes fell by about 2/3 in Venezuela. Caracas, which was once one of the richest cities, became just a city of slums because nobody had any money. Because the only people who got rich when that regime was in place were the political leaders. The politicians got rich and everyone else got poor. By the way, I hope that doesn't happen in New York, but that may well happen. Next, you have what happened with the situation with the inflation. And this was something that was almost unforgivable. So you're not going to believe this, but at one point, inflation went up by over 1,000%. 1,000%. It's hard to even imagine that. By the way, many Americans are upset because we've had inflation of 4, 5, 6%. Can you imagine 1,000% inflation? That meant that the currency, the Venezuelan dollar, was not really even worth what the paper was printed on. And so when you destroy a nation's currency, you destroy the economic system of the country. And so what people tended to do was just buy dollars, U.S. dollars, and use that as their currency of exchange because he destroyed the local currency. Then what happened next, because he destroyed so much of the economy, is that businesses left Venezuela and people, high-income people left Venezuela, and they went to other nations in South and Central America, and many of them came to the United States. So a country that was once had about 36 million people was down to less than 30 million people. So 25% or so of the people living in Venezuela left. And those tended to be the people who had money, who had the resources to get out, and had businesses. And they packed up their bags and they left Venezuela. And the people who were left behind were the desperately poor people. And so the bottom line of this was that Venezuela was a hell state. It turned into a country where people were literally, not figuratively, literally killing animals in the zoo for food to eat. That's how bad things got in that country, which, by the way, off their coast, they had billions of barrels of oil, but they were too stupid and incompetent to get at it. And so now you have a situation. The good news is that Venezuela can become a rich country again. I believe that can happen. And by the way, Caracas has beautiful beaches. It should be a tourist destination. It should be like Bermuda. It should be as rich as Saudi Arabia. And my plan, folks, and I wonder what you all think about this, is to give the oil fields and the oil revenues to the people, not the corrupt politicians. And so every single citizen of Venezuela should be able to get a share in those oil revenues. And we estimate that per person, those oil revenues are worth as much as $100,000 per person. So do it. Just do it. Let the Venezuelan people have ownership. Now, it's going to need to be controlled and managed by professional oil and gas firms who know how to do the drilling, but then turn it over to the people. Power to the people is my message, and that's exactly what Donald Trump is bringing to the nation of Venezuela. I said this last week. I'm going to say it again because as we learn more and more about what happened in terms of how our military took this dictator, this thug, this murderer out of office, was one of the most impressive military operations of the last 30 years. We haven't seen anything like this before. It's amazing that you could carry off something like that with virtually zero American casualties. So, as you know, Donald Trump is the commander-in-chief, so he deserves a lot of credit for this. But the men and women who pulled this off were heroes to me. And I'm sickened by the fact that you have people protesting in the streets of the United States and even in Europe saying, how dare Donald Trump invade this country and get rid of this thug who is a criminal. I say, thank you, Mr. President, for liberating 30 million people. So this is a good news story. I'm going to talk a lot about the economy throughout the show. We've got a great list of amazing speakers. We've got to practice free market economics here at home. And we need to have free market economics in New York City, folks. I'm not sure we're going to get that with the new mayor of New York City. We have a little line in our hotline. You say Mandami, I say Maduro. I mean, maybe they're two sides of the same coin. Anyway, folks, we'll be right back. This is the More Money Show. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend. And thanks so much for carving up some of your time to be with us.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Why do growing businesses love working in Slack? Let's ask Christy at Ari Bikes.
Running things in Slack saves me so much time.
AI summaries save 97 minutes per week. What say you, Rox from Gosney?
Slack helps us build community, it helps us build connection.
Your partners, vendors and customers all in one place. Take us on home, Ashley from Caraway.
If we didn't have Slack tomorrow, I would explode.
Well, let's not let that happen. Visit slack.com/podcast to get 50% off Slack Business Plus.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show. This is Steve Moore. I am in the Cannon House office building on Capitol Hill in the big caucus room. And if you hear a lot of background noise, that's because this is a big session by the Republican Study Committee with some of the best members of Congress who are going down Radio Row. And so I'm very happy to have Austin Scott from the great state of Georgia. And the first question I have for you, Congressman Scott, is will Georgia win the national championship again this year?
Absolutely. The Georgia Bulldogs are the national champions. Every now and then we loan the trophy to another team just because we don't want to be greedy about it. But
it's a good team this year.
It's a good team with a great coach. And
are you a Bulldog?
I am a Bulldog. I majored in risk management and insurance.
You going to beat Alabama?
We beat Alabama every year. It's just sometimes they get an extra point or two on us. But Alabama's a great team. And
can I ask you a serious question about? I love college football. I'm an Illini. I went to the University of Illinois. We're not quite as good as Georgia, but I don't think we played Georgia any time in the recent years. But what do you make of the whole what's happening with college football and the NIL and this year was a spectacular season. So many great games, but. these players, some of these players are making more money playing college football than they would in the pros.
They are, and I think it's done away with a lot of the team camaraderie, if you will. And so I'm very worried about the team aspect of things. And I can tell you, Stephen, when I was coming along through high school and all, I snapped punts. So the position I played was one of those positions where you wouldn't have gotten anything. You would have been eating at the buffet if the school provided one. And obviously, if you have a great kicker, they might be getting millions of dollars. You got to believe there's certain resentments and other things that come into play there. I just believe in the team aspect of things. Yeah. I don't begrudge the players.
Well, they're not. Some of them are not really student athletes anymore. They're more like professional athletes.
When we got a piece of legislation coming to the floor this week, the SCORE Act.
I like that bill.
I have
what do you think? It's better than the Democrat bill.
It is, and so I'll tell you a free market principle that's in it that I don't like is they're saying, well, their agent can only make 5%. I don't know any agents. I don't know anybody who has an NIL contract. But do we really want to start saying that an adult?
It's like a price control.
Yeah. I mean, do we really want to start saying that?
I just don't want to see the players unionized. And I don't either. See lawsuits, legal abuses of the system.
I don't either. I have thought for a long.
I talked to your colleague Steve Scalise, as you know, he's he kind of talked me into it, but I agree there are some problems with it. But I looked at the Democrat bill. Yeah, that's a horrible bill.
Ours is much better.
Yeah, but it could be improved.
I do not believe, and one of my concerns is, and I do, we'll try to pass it this week. I'm going to vote for the rule. I still have some reservations about the legislation, but it's better than nothing. I don't think that the piece of legislation as it's drafted is going to solve all of the problems.
No, it will not.
Nor am I someone who believes that a federal piece of legislation can solve all of the problems.
So that's probably true.
But it does bother me that the team aspect, and you look back at the greatest coaches. The coaches will now tell you that players are coming to them with demands, and the demands are revolving in some cases around money. And not around the team.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's the one. But it's a great product. I love college football. And it is. I want to see it continue. I just wish I'm a Big Ten guy. You're an SEC guy.
That's right.
That's a great rivalry.
Do y'all play football in the Big Ten?
Pardon me?
Do y'all play football in the Big Ten?
I was a little too small to play football, but I love football, and I love the product. Okay, so let us talk about first of all, how many years have you been? I'm talking to Austin Scott from the.
So I've been here. I've been here for 15 years.
15. You've been here a while.
I have. Full disclosure.
So what is the thing that has most frustrated you about being in Congress?
The polarization.
Yeah. It's never been so. I've been in this town 30 years. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah. It's more polarized now than.
Do you even talk to Democrats anymore?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you'd be surprised. I mean, there's, some of my best friends are Democrats. I would, if I'm going to go get a beer with somebody, I'd rather it be somebody that I trusted than somebody that I necessarily agreed with. So the thing that the American citizens don't see and people outside don't see is that, I mean, there are people that I vote with 100% of the time almost that I don't necessarily like or consider friends or trust to say something around them. And there are people that I vote with virtually 0% of the time that I have a tremendous amount of respect for, that I enjoy having dinner with, and our wives are friends.
How well have you gotten to know President Trump?
Not very well. I respect him. I think he's taken on tremendous issues that.
Does he come to your caucus very often, or?
I wish he came more.
Yeah, I do too.
I wish he came more. Yeah. I wish we had more dialogue with the administration than we do. That would be my chief criticism of the administration as a whole. Is that there's not enough respectful dialogue back and forth. Right. The challenge we have, though, Stephen, is that if you put all of us in a room together, unfortunately, somebody can't keep their phone off, and we have people who literally record conversations and share them with the press.
Yeah, and so nothing off the record in this town anymore.
That's exactly right, and that's a problem. But the dialogue with the administration would be helpful. Obviously, tariffs is one of those situations where we need to be having more dialogue about what it's doing to certain industries.
Yeah. I agree with you. I mean, as you know, you probably know, I've been and I'm close to Donald Trump, but he gets mad at me because I'm not a big fan of some of his tariffs. But look, the tariffs do have a negative impact on certain industries, and we've seen that in sort of light manufacturing, et cetera. We saw that with the the coffee prices and so on.
Yep.
But overall, it's been a pretty productive year. You guys have done a lot.
It's been a very productive year, and I think the most important thing is what we got done very early, which is the tax bill.
Oh, it's huge.
And so nobody's getting a tax increase January 1.
Yes.
It's just not going to happen. And it's not going to happen because Republicans in the House and the Senate and the President,
Yeah, I mean, and by the way, congratulations. We ran the outside coalition at Unleash Prosperity of all the groups, and I never thought we could get that done by the 4th of July. I just didn't, I've been in this town a long time, and you guys did it. And it was partly because you were all so committed in the House as Republicans, but also Trump. This is a force of nature in terms of getting these things done. So congratulations.
Yeah.
Incidentally, one of the people come up to me all the time and say, hey, I haven't really felt the effect of that tax cut yet. And we have to always remind people it's going to be next year for most people because of the withholding. So they're going to get that tax cut in 2026. Not 2025.
Well, the other side of that coin is they haven't felt the effects of the tax increase they were going to get if we hadn't gotten it done.
That's a really good
point. And so ultimately, it is stopping the tax increase that was coming. Right. And so most people like myself, my taxes are not going to go down from what they were the previous year. But they're not going up to what the Democrats wanted them to go to.
And every Democrat in the House voted for this massive tax increase.
That's right. And if you think about where we are with our economy, we've been very lucky. I mean, recessions do happen. We have not had a recession in a long time. No. If you wanted to trigger a recession, do to businesses what the Democrats were going to do to businesses in the expiration of the Trump tax
We have
cuts.
about 2 minutes left. I'm talking to Austin Scott, the congressman from Georgia. From Georgia, and I want if you could do three things, if you could, wave a wand and change how Congress works or how our policy works. What are the three things that you think are most important to keep our country safe and prosperous?
I would go back to the committee process. I think we should respect the committee process.
Now, what does that mean?
That means that if you're on the Armed Services Committee, you're making the decisions made on the Armed Services Committee that in that committee of jurisdiction. Okay. And then the other members that aren't on that committee should respect the work of the committee, the committee process.
Because they're experts.
They're the ones that are studying the issues. And then let's make decisions based on facts and not emotion. And then the other things, respect for the 10th Amendment and let's get, if it's not constitutionally our responsibility, then we should stay out of it.
Yes.
And so, again, I mean, education is one of the examples we're talking about right now. Federal Department of Education, we cut political ads at an 8th grade reading level, even though everybody who can vote is 18 years of age. If you want any more proof that the Federal Department of Education has failed in its mission than that, I can't find one. And so let's turn things like
the third?
I would work towards a balanced budget. We don't get there overnight, but a balanced budget would force Congress to actually make the decisions and determine what was a priority and what was not a priority. And simply continuing to spend money today because you spent it yesterday is not very smart.
Well, Congressman, I agree with all of those. Great reforms. Thank you for what you do for the country. Austin Scott, the congressman from Georgia, you've been in for 14
This is my
years.
15th year.
Thank you for your service. And this is The More Money Show. We will be right back.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is The More Money Show. This is economist Steve Moore, and I am broadcasting today in the Cannon House office building and bringing to the microphones some of the best congressmen in the country to talk about what is happening to our country, especially the fiscal situation. So my first guest is one of my favorites, Congressman from Texas. Sir, tell us about yourself. Tell us what what committees you're on, and then I want to really delve into how do we solve this fiscal problem.
Well, thank you, Steve. Thanks for having me on. I'm Keith Self. I represent the 3rd District in Texas.
Yes.
I'm just northeast of Dallas. I serve on the Veterans Affairs Committee.
Are you on Budget Committee?
I'm not on Budget Committee.
You should be, because you know more about the budget than anyone.
And I chair the Europe Subcommittee on Foreign Affairs, and then I'm on Science,
how many years have you served?
I was in the Army for 25 years.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. So I was overseas.
Where were you?
Stationed in Germany twice, Belgium, Egypt. Those were my actual assignments, and then I was deployed four times. So a lot in the Middle East. I served with the IDF in Israel. I was actually stationed in Germany, but worked with the IDF personally.
Well, thank you for your service to our country. Now, how long have you been in Congress?
3 years now.
How do you like it?
I love the back and forth, and it's so important what we have to do here, Steve.
So there's so much I want to ask you. First of all, you were telling me that the new report is that from the Congressional Budget Office, which is the official scorekeeper of the budget situation, did you say 60 trillion? 60?
The director of the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, was testifying in front of the Budget Committee. I was allowed to sit in and ask questions. He said $62 trillion.
Well, we're at, what are we at?
38, almost 39.
So we're going to see another almost 50% increase in the size of the debt. By when?
He was talking 10 years.
God, amazing.
We've been using 50 trillion. The director of CBO says it's 62 trillion. That's amazing.
So this, of course, is going to lead to a crash landing if we allow this to happen.
You would think so, absolutely.
And so, listen, this is being driven in large part by out-of-control healthcare costs.
It is.
Right. And so Medicare and Medicaid, the costs are exploding, especially Medicaid. And I'm interested in what you have to say about this whole issue of these vastly expanded healthcare subsidies under Obamacare, which, basically we've almost created, Congressman, the left stream of a single-payer government-run healthcare system.
We have, but back to the basics. I only vote on 17% of the federal budget. That's the discretionary part. So 83% is mandatory, and that's what you're talking about, is these mandatory spending, these subsidies that you talked about.
So they're like on almost autopilot.
They're on autopilot. Yeah. You got it.
Except when you expand them, like with the Obamacare subsidies, which was outrageous, and now the Democrats want to make those. Weren't those supposed to be COVID-era expansions?
They were COVID-era temporary subsidies.
By the way, Congressman, you know what Ronald Reagan used to say. There's nothing more permanent than a temporary government program.
That's exactly right. So why, and Democrats set the expiration date, Steve. So why are the Republicans going to own Obamacare?
When was it supposed to expire?
It expires on December 31st this year.
So this is the whole debate then about whether
next month.
And God, I pray that we just can't afford these subsidies. And incidentally, I saw one of your colleagues, and tell me if this is true, he was saying you could have an income of up to $500,000 and still get federal subsidies?
Under those temporary subsidies, absolutely.
That's absurd and insane.
Yes, it was. Absolutely.
So, okay, what is the plan? What is your plan to deal with healthcare?
Well, first of all, your audience needs to understand those are baked in now. The premiums are baked in. The insurance companies have put them out. People are responding to them now. So anything Congress does now...
Sorry to interrupt you, but... we just got our notification from our health insurance company. Our premiums are going up 15% next year.
Right.
Families cannot afford this.
They can't, but understand the temporary subsidies that are going to expire are only a very small part of that premium increase.
Right.
They're the regular Obamacare subsidies that we're not addressing are most of those premium increases, not the temporary subsidies that are going to expire.
So what happened to affordable care?
Well, Obamacare is not affordable care.
That's for sure.
That's why Senator Scott has the More Affordable Care Act.
I love that bill, by the way. Are you on board that bill?
Well, absolutely, but it's starting in the Senate.
House?
I don't know.
You should be. I'm going to volunteer. Rick Scott is one of my great friends. He was a great governor and a great senator, but his bill is almost too logical.
Right. But the point is, we need time to get that bill through. We will not fix Obamacare in the next 3 weeks.
So
we need to let.
What happens on January 1st then?
We need to let the temporary subsidies expire.
Yes, thank you.
We need to get the More Affordable Care Act going, build momentum, get it through the House and through the Senate.
So I'm sure a lot of our. By the way, I'm talking to Congressman Self of Texas. People don't understand healthcare very much because they've made it so complicated. And what are some of the key reforms in that bill that you would support that would help drive down healthcare costs without denying people access to the vital care?
We need transparency on all costs.
Yes,
hospitals,
I love that.
Transparency.
I love that. People know when you go see a doctor or a service at the hospital, they have to tell you what it's going to cost.
And they have to tell you
do that.
Insurance. That they don't. Insurance versus cash.
Right.
Because today you take cash in for it. They charge you far less. And
know what? Sorry to interrupt you, but this is such a good point you're making, Congressman. I've almost opted out of the whole government-run system. So I have and I don't know if you're supposed to do this. My wife and I just said, we have a doctor, a concierge doctor. We don't even deal with the system. We just pay him for the services he provides the old-fashioned way. And we love it. He's gotten to know us. We've gotten to know him. Whenever we have a health problem, we know he's available. Why can't we go back to that model?
Well, that's the second point.
Right.
Put the patient and the doctor back in charge and get the insurance companies out of the middle of it.
You're just, you're hitting all the right buttons here, Congressman. I cannot stand these health insurance companies. By the way, as you know, and I don't think our listeners know this, but you know it, that the biggest lobbyist for expanding all these Obamacare subsidies is the health insurance companies. They're the ones who are making all the money on this.
Because they're getting federal dollars directly to the insurance companies, often where there are no claims. Steve, think about that. Federal dollars to the insurance companies where there are no claims.
So it's just gravy for them.
It's gravy, absolutely. In fact, there was a study done that if we didn't have Obamacare subsidies, the insurance companies would be very flat as opposed to the amazing amounts of profit that they're making.
Well, I want to see that system cut out altogether with some of these healthcare problems. So we've just got 2 minutes left, Congressman, and appreciate you. By the way, folks, we're in the Cannon. If you hear that background, we're in the Cannon House Office building where a lot of these decisions are made. Tell me what else you would do if you were king for the day to bring down this enormous amount of federal spending and debt.
We've got to understand you can't just keep adding bills. There must be a real pay for anything that we pass through Congress. Mm-hmm. If you're going to pass a bill that has a cost to it, what is the pay for? We're going to pass,
what you're saying is so logical. I think probably most of my listeners will. Of course, that's the way you budget. That's the way you budget family budgets. That's the way a business budgets. You're saying you don't do that in Washington.
No, because if you bring a noble bill to me, it's got a noble purpose. It's got a cost. Then let's find a less noble bill to stop, to cut out. Because, look, Congress is in the business of priorities. Where do we allocate resources? Mm-hmm. Well, right now, we're allocating resources we don't have because we're printing dollars. We need to get back to where do we allocate resources to a more noble bill that we're going to what are we going to cut out to pay for that more noble bill?
One thing that President Trump has talked about, and I know you're a big supporter of his, as I am, is this idea, I've been doing this for 40 years, as you know, so I've been in this town a long time. Yeah. And it's been the idea of giving the president the authority to rescind funding if it's not needed. Now, this is what every CEO of every company has. In other words, if you appropriate $100 million, but you only need $60 million, right now the agencies just go ahead and spend the money even if they don't need to. And impounding, I think the word is impounding the funds, would save a lot of money, in my opinion.
We actually had a success during this Congress.
What's
$9 billion rescission.
You did.
We passed $9.4 billion out of the House. The Senate cut it down to $9 billion. Right. But that's a precedent. The Senate has now cut something out. The Senate never cuts money.
This means this is money that was already appropriated.
Correct.
That has been canceled.
Correct.
We need a lot
fraud,
more.
Waste, and abuse is what we said. We need rescissions to continue. to give the OMB director, Russ Vought, the authority to tell the president what we need to have a rescission on.
One last question, if I may. Doge. What Elon Musk came to town to do, which I fully support. In fact, I told the president, you need a waste commission. I don't want this thing to go away. I want an outside, group like a Doge to continue to look at where we can make savings. What do you think the future is of Doge?
I don't know, but I think we do need to continue the effort. Of course, now we have confirmed secretaries that should be doing the same thing because they are Donald Trump's team. And frankly, you've got a great director of the OMB, Russ Vought. Turn Russ Vought loose to start finding the fraud, waste, and abuse, the things that we need to cut. Turn Russ Vought loose.
So I've been talking to Congressman Self from Texas, who is one of the leading superstars trying to bring fiscal sanity back in Washington. Congressman, thank you for doing what you do. I know it is, having been in this town for 40 years, I know it is a lonely fight, but thank you for doing it. And if we can, what was the number again? 62 trillion in 10 years of debt. It's going to be the Potomac is just going to be filled with red ink.
That is 62,000 billion.
Okay, folks, we got to stop that from happening, and the guy who's going to do it is Congressman Self. Thanks so much for being here.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We're back, folks, and I am today live in the House Caucus building, in the Cannon House office building, and have been talking to a lot of the members of Congress about what is going on with our economy, what's going on with healthcare, all the questions that you asked me on the show. This, of course, is the More Money Show. And so I'm pleased to have Greg Murphy, who is a third term or fourth term? Third term congressman from the great state of North Carolina, the Tar Heel state. And Greg Murphy is great in many aspects, but one of the most important things about Greg Murphy is you're one of the few actual practicing physicians in Congress.
Yeah, I think there may be a couple other now that have started to do it, or maybe never stopped. But I've never stopped.
There's a congressman from Tennessee, right? Who's a
I don't know who that might be.
Anyway, but let's get right down to this because this is so important. Let's get to the whole issue of doctor-patient relationship.
Sure,
it seems like an old-time, concept. But I am disturbed by the fact that you don't have that like you used to.
Yeah.
What do we need? And that's one of the most important parts of the healthcare system.
It is. And Stephen, I'll always look at the doctor-patient relationship as probably being the second strongest after the maternal fetal relationship, mother-child relationship, just in bonding, obviously parents and everything else. But what has eroded that is government. The healthcare systems, the electronic medical record, because we're forced to sit here and play on a computer, which is was started out as a billing device. That's why the electronic medical record was started. It has some good effects for it otherwise, but it's a challenge. We don't have enough doctors. We have too many regulations that say we have to do this, that, and the other stuff, and it's very challenging. I will tell you this, Stephen. Last night I was on the phone with a patient of mine. I still do this because I still care. I'd rather prefer doctor in front of me than congressman in front of me. And when I leave here, I still have doctor in front of me. I care deeply about our healthcare system. We're going in the wrong direction because of a lot of different proclivities of different organizations, agencies. And I don't think it's too late, but we're not in a good place right now.
So I couldn't agree more, and I want to suggest some ideas and get your reaction to this. So my wife and I basically are just using a concierge doctor, like someone like yourself, and we've almost opted out of the government system because it's so damn complicated and it's so expensive, and we pay the doctor when we go the old-fashioned way. He just gives us a bill and we pay it. I don't deal with the government or anything like that. By the way, pretty soon they're probably going to make that illegal to do something like that.
No, I won't let that happen.
But in any case, why can't we go back to that? My idea is most Americans, in my opinion, are overinsured for healthcare, not underinsured. And so we never ask, gee, how much will if you say to me, Steve, you may need a surgery or you need this treatment or that, I wouldn't normally ask you, well, gee, what is that going to cost me? Because somebody else is always paying for it. So why can't we just go back? And then, what I want to see is everybody is covered with sort of a catastrophic coverage. So obviously you have cancer or you have a chronic disease or you have a terrible accident. The insurance covered it. But why can't we just go back to people paying more out of pocket? That will actually save money for patients in terms of much lower premiums.
I think it will, but you have to understand, and I think this is just one of the challenges we have. Insurance is an insurance pool. It's always you pool a lot of money. There are probably a few small users. So you look at some of the disasters that have happened on the Outer Banks and all the other coastal things. Well, people in Illinois and Michigan are helping to pay for some of that stuff because they pay into a pool. Right. If people just paid out of pocket, the vast majority of people could not afford if they had a catastrophic illness or if they just have, but you're talking about a catastrophic plan, yes. Right. But for the vast majority of people, it would be very challenging to pay for these things. This is why, again, with employers
hold on. I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. All
right, well.
Because people are paying tens of thousands of dollars in premiums every year, and most people don't have expenses.
Sure, to that point.
So in other words, I think actually people would save for money if they had, a high deductible plan. And incidentally, one of the things that really bothers me about the rules and the laws that you all have passed, not you personally, but David, under Obamacare, it's almost illegal to have a catastrophic coverage plan.
Let me, if I can divert for 2 seconds to talk about Obamacare. Obamacare was written by insurance companies for insurance companies. And this is never more prevalent. Look, I always challenge listeners to just literally take Google and go look at United Healthcare. Look at their profits since Obamacare. Look at some of the other insurance company profits since Obamacare. And by the way, if you look at what happened after the Senate voted for their CR and they did not include these enhanced premium tax credits, look at the 4 major insurance companies. Look at what their stock prices did the next day.
What happened?
They plummeted.
Yeah.
And, you look at all these premiums.
That's really interesting.
This is basically to supplant what has gone on for insurance company losses.
Yeah, and by the way, the insurance companies have made a fortune off of Obamacare.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Right. You look at the hundreds of billions of dollars that the insurance industry has made since Obamacare has come in. And guess what hasn't happened? Premiums have never gone down.
Yeah.
Premiums have never gone down. Right. Now, look, I can give you about 15 reasons why healthcare costs so much in this country, starting with insurance companies, starting with government regulation, lack of competition. Remember, the ACA did not allow associated health insurance plans.
That's terrible.
Because it was competition.
Yeah.
And so there are plenty of things that we can do to make healthcare a lot more affordable. The real issue is, all right, so somebody who makes $50,000 a year, $60,000 a year, they come in, and God forbid they have to have their appendix taken out. They go to the emergency department and have a CAT scan, talk to an anesthesiologist, talk to a surgeon. It may be $9,000, $10,000. Do they have a catastrophic plan? For somebody who's making $60,000 a year, that's a huge burden. So I think there's a middle ground with some of this stuff.
Yep.
I think we have to look at these enhanced tax credits, enhanced premiums as a way that we're bailing out a failed system. But I think what we need to do, and we need to be serious about this, and I actually think this can be bipartisan, to look at why healthcare costs so much. That said, the first arm of the Democratic Party is the party itself. The second arm is the mainstream media. Now the third arm is the insurance industry.
Yes.
Because they poured plenty of money into California for Prop 50 to make sure that they had more Democratic seats.
And the irony is, having lived through the Obamacare debate back in 2010, I believe it was at that time, the insurance companies were worried that it was going to just... Remember, there's this whole issue of, what do they call it, where the government could run the plan. I forget there was a term. In other words, the insurance companies didn't want, the government to run the plans because that would have...
look, I'm at the point now with these for-profit insurance companies. We have a lot of non-profit insurance companies. I think we need to seriously consider making them all nonprofit. But there are problems with nonprofit institutions when they pay their CEOs $50 and $70 million.
So we just have about a minute left. I'm talking to Congressman Murphy from the great state of North Carolina. Give us, in 1 minute, the 3 things that you would do right now if you were king for the day to improve both the affordability and the quality of our healthcare system?
Well, one might be to make insurance companies nonprofit.
Yes.
And so we throw the tax, the incentive out. Associated health insurance plans are a good thing for competition.
What is that? What is it?
That's basically saying craftsmen, plumbers, whatever, can put all together and have a good plan together. But they didn't want it in the ACA because it was competition.
Yes.
There's also things with our pharmaceutical industry. There's also things, truth be told, with physicians. We're getting to the point where we're ordering too many tests. There's such tort reform needs to happen in this country, government reform, and also the fact that there is an issue with ordering too much stuff. We're running up healthcare costs. We have a lot of people in the healthcare system, either through ignorance, lack of education, or what, because they order a lot more stuff.
I say that we could have better healthcare at almost half the cost if we did it your way.
I absolutely agree. There are literally 15 things, and I would beat on literally every aspect, and some of my colleagues may get mad at me, but we can make this system affordable for this country.
Amen to that. That's Congressman Murphy from the great state of North Carolina. This is the More Money Show. Thank you so much, folks. We'll be right back.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show. I'm economist Steve Moore. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's been a thrill to be with you this afternoon. I hope your weekend is going wonderfully as we move into the middle of January. I want to say a couple of things about the issues that are going on right now and that are coming up in the next week ahead. And the big one, of course, is healthcare and what do we do about the future of Obamacare. Now, if you're a regular listener to this show, you know the facts because I recite them week after week. Obamacare was a fraud. It's a complete failure. It has driven healthcare costs through the roof. And we're now looking at health care costs in many states 2 to 3 times higher than they were in around 2010 when we passed the bill that was supposed to make health care affordable. We need to rip it out. We need to start over again. I firmly believe that we could have better health care in this country using the free enterprise system, better health care at half the cost. And we could cover everyone with a blanket of good health coverage so that if they get cancer or heart disease or some kind of chronic disease that they are protected from ruinous healthcare bills. But I've got to tell you, what the Democrats want to do is give Obamacare taxpayer subsidies to people who make as much as $500,000 a year. I think that's obscene. They want to push basically everybody into a government-run healthcare system, which has never worked. And look at Canada, where people have to wait a year or two to get any kind of healthcare services that they may need, a surgery or to see a doctor. Sometimes it's 8 weeks to get the healthcare people need in Canada because they let the government run the system. And so we need to abolish Obamacare and start over. Give every American a plan that they would pay for, but it would be a catastrophic coverage plan that would cover any major event that you get. That's why you have insurance, so that you don't lose everything if you get sick. But for the most of the other expenses, have people put money into a tax-free health savings account, and they use the money in that account to go see a doctor or for routine medical expenses. Everybody would be better off under that system. Everyone. And by the way, for people who can't afford to pay into the health savings account, the government could put the money in there themselves. And if you don't use the money in the health savings account, you get to keep it. So now everybody has an incentive to keep healthcare costs down, and it becomes affordable to everyone. And I'm not saying poor people should not be covered. They should. They should be covered. They should get money by the taxpayer, put in their own health savings account. So incentives matter in economics. If we did this, most Americans would save thousands and thousands of dollars, in some cases, tens of thousands of dollars. Let's do this, folks. And when you think about this, most Americans have their health care coverage through their employer. I think it's close to 100 million people who have health coverage through their employer. Well, as health costs go up, that costs the employer more money. What do you think that does to your paycheck? Think about that. The business can only stay in business if they make a profit, and if they make a profit off their employees. But if all if all of their production goes to paying for healthcare costs, they can't get a high salary. and they can't get a pay raise. What I'm saying is it's not free. Healthcare is not free, folks. This is one of the great mythologies. You're paying for the healthcare through a lower salary and wage and take-home pay than you would otherwise have. We can fix this problem through free enterprise, a better model. And for those who think Obamacare is wonderful and the Democrats should expand it so everybody has coverage, remember this. 60 to 70% of the benefit from expanding Obamacare subsidies do not go to Americans and do not go to patients or families. 60 to 70% of those billions and billions of dollars go to the health insurance companies and go to the massive hospital conglomerates that are taking over America. They're the ones who are lobbying to expand Obamacare because they're the ones who get rich off of this. And so people say, oh, yes, more coverage. Oh, people are going to die if we don't expand Obamacare. No. What's going to happen is these health insurance companies and these hospital conglomerates are going to have to cut their costs. And so let's do that. And I also believe one last thing. I believe in price transparency, and we should have what I call a rule that says no price, no pay. In other words, if they don't list the price of the medical services and the patient can attest to the fact they were never told the cost, you don't have to pay the bill. How about that? Because when's the last time you saw a doctor or went to the hospital or for any kind of medical service and you asked how much it was going to cost? Nobody does. Nobody does. And why? Because the patient doesn't pay for it. So they have an incentive to load up on healthcare costs. You have cities in America where you could go to one hospital and the MRI costs $600 and you go down the street and the MRI costs $6,000. Maybe if we had people shop around, we could lower costs. So what I'm talking about is putting free enterprise back into the medical system. By the way, the healthcare system is 20 to 25% of our economy now. In many cities, the largest employer is the hospital. And so we have to lower healthcare costs, give better care for people. And you know how you do that? Through the free enterprise system and through free markets. We cannot allow the Democrats to expand Obamacare subsidies. If they do, I guarantee you what we are going to eventually end up with is a government-run healthcare system. And if you like the way they run the schools, if you like the way they run the New York transit system, if you like the way that they provide safety on the streets, because I don't think they're doing a very good job of any of that. If you like the way they're balancing the budget, which they can't do, let's not put more power into these people's hands. We need to make sure that we have the best health and care in the world, but we need to do it at an affordable cost. Okay, folks, that is the More Money Show for this weekend. Hope you have a great, great weekend ahead, and we will be back, same bat time, same bat channel on WABC on the More Money Show.
Thanks for listening to More Money with Steve Moore. You can hear More Money with Steve Moore Saturday afternoons at 1. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now. You call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.